This is Truly Independent, a show that demystifies the indie film journey by documenting the process of releasing independent films in theaters. Each week, Garrett Batty and I, Darren Smith, will update you on our journey, bringing guests to share their insights into the process and answer your questions. In today's episode, we speak with Kynan Griffin, co-founder of Aerostorm Entertainment and one of the pioneers of kickstarting films. We also answer the listener questions: how do you determine the best markets for an indie film release? And have we considered an online release shortly after the theatrical run? All this and more in today's episode of Truly Independent. This is episode 7. Garrett, what's up, man?
Hey, good to see you.
You too. Man, I'm excited today. I am pumped. We are just in the thick of it with our movies right now. It was so fun telling everybody last week that we have 2 movies coming out. Surprise.
Yeah.
So
Faith
fun,
of
yeah.
Angels in September. Dates are officially announced. We can finally talk about it. And The Carpenter, November 1st. Momentum is building for that one as well.
Yeah. Oh, man. It's been so fun being in the thick of it. Like, we're having meetings multiple times a week with lots of people, and we see people jumping on and being willing to help. It's super cool. We're going to touch on that in a little bit. But first, did you see any indie movies this week?
I did. Yep. I'm happy to report that I did. I went and saw Sound of Hope, Story of Possum Trot. Angel Studios released that movie on July 4th. There was a huge, if you lived in the United States, you saw advertisements for Sound of Hope on social media. Just a huge social media campaign. And they always do such an amazing job at their marketing and building an audience. I mean, they have built from the ground up a network of hundreds of thousands of supporters and backers, and they just have a model that is enviable. Is that the word? Anyway, so
Yeah.
the movie itself was very powerful as a father of adopted children through the foster care program. It certainly was pulled the heartstrings. And congratulations to those filmmakers, first-time filmmakers of that movie. It was great. How about you, Darren? What did you see?
It's so cool. While we're on it, I do want to touch on their success over the weekend, because they hit the number 7 box office spot, opened on 2,200 screens to $3 million that weekend. Now that includes Thursday, which was 4th of July. But man, oh man, like, that's awesome. As an indie, as a, lower, but I don't know what the budget on that movie was, but my gosh, they know how to market films. They know how to put them in theaters. They're killing it over there. So congrats to everyone involved, to Angel Studios, all of our friends over there, and again, the filmmakers of the movie. Great job. I'm excited to see it as well. I haven't seen it yet, but I did see 2 indies this last week. I saw a movie called Theater Camp, which is awesome. It's like Ben Platt and a group of actor friends. I think that I was looking into it a little bit. It started as like a short film, and they expanded it and turned it into a thing. But if you are someone who was in the arts in high school, like, this movie will resonate. It's so specific, so fun, and they did a great job with it. So a fun little indie. I think you can watch it on Netflix. I think that's where I saw it. But Theater Camp was great. And then our friends over at JK Studios and Soro Films, they made a movie a few years ago called Stop and Go. I don't remember what it was originally called, but like, it went to the South by Southwest Film Festival, and it got picked up by BuzzFeed Studios. Like, they did an amazing job. It's this nice little small indie, and it's great. And it's always fun seeing your friends, like, in real movies,
Right. Yeah.
So congrats to them too. And that's a few years ago that movie came out, but it was a lot of fun. The humor is really, really good in that movie. Really tight and really well thought out. And kind of the first movie about the pandemic experience that came out, if I remember right. So they just capitalized on it and went for it. And I don't know how hard it was making that movie in 2020, but they did it. So congrats to them as well.
Cool. Yeah, always JK Studio always does fun stuff. Good for them.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've been up to a lot the last 2 weeks. So before we get to our guest today, we really should update people on, I didn't do the math ahead of time, and I'm bad at public math. So it's the 8th, 9th of July. So we are about 2 months out from the release of
Faith of
Faith of
Angels.
Angels. So
Yeah.
what are we working on, and what are we doing every day to make this a successful release?
So one of the things we did this past week that was that we're thrilled about and is turning out is we released the trailer via an up viral campaign. So it was a campaign to unlock the trailer. We posted it, not publicly, not on social media or anything like that. Just put the trailer behind essentially uh, a locked vault, and you had to put your email in order to access it. The idea was that you unlock the trailer and share it, and then the more shares that you do, um, you receive points toward viewing the movie at an advanced screening. So it's a little bit scary because you think, oh, we're going to launch this trailer and then limit the access to it and limit the views. Is that worth it? And
Well, I think it's really worth it. Like, if you're talking about, trying to build an audience, I've been doing this for over a decade now. And if you can get 100 emails from a campaign like that, that's amazing. Like, that's 100 people. That's a small theater. That's a small venue of people that are there saying, yeah, we're interested and we're supporting you and we want to be involved and we want to know about this. So far, and this is a 2-week campaign that we've set up, and so you can see the trailer for Faith of Angels for 2 weeks if you go to this Up Viral site. We'll put a link in the show notes as well, and you can watch it, and then it gives you an opportunity to share it online, and so it encourages and incentivizes sharing as well, because people can get access to things like screenings and other stuff. But in a week, we've done nearly 1,000 people have signed up for this. So 1,000 emails that have been added to our email list that are now people that we have permission to contact again, to tell them about their release, to tell them about the Kickstarter, to tell them about all the things. And I just said a word that we haven't even touched on yet. But like, that's the strategy there, is like the 2 weeks before the next thing we're going to talk about, we did this Up Viral campaign to try and get as many new people into our kind of little ecosystem of email as possible. And it's going really, really well. We have 1,000 new people that have joined the email list. That's awesome.
it
Huge
is, and
win.
we're just thrilled, and we're thrilled. And as much as you'd say, oh well, I want the numbers on social media or the YouTube count to go up, it will, it will. Don't we? It's I have to tell myself not to worry about that. But right now, if 10,000 people watched it on YouTube, I don't have any way to contact them. We don't have any way to like follow up or promote again. But now we've got 1,000 people that will be encouraged to share this, and yeah, it's well worth it. So we're very excited about that. And Darren, you gave a little hint to Kickstarter. That's what this episode's about, and that's what we want to announce that we are
Yeah.
doing. We're launching. We have launched by the time this episode lands. We have launched a Kickstarter campaign for Faith of Angels. We had so many people reaching out saying, "How can we help? This is exciting. We want to see this movie." And so we've said, "Look, we are going to do a Kickstarter campaign to help get the word out there, to allow people to help participate, and essentially to raise awareness and funds to take this to more theaters."
Yeah. And it's interesting maybe to talk about why Kickstarter, because we've been talking about email and we've talking about owning our audience and all that stuff. But for me, Kickstarter is such a known entity. And so people are familiar with what a Kickstarter is. They've probably backed a Kickstarter before. Kickstarter has raised like $8+ billion for creative projects since they started. Like, everybody knows what a Kickstarter is. And so being able to send people over there, they understand the mechanism of backing a project and picking a tier or a reward. Like, it all makes sense. And it's really easy and kind of frictionless as far as helping people contribute and back the project and be a part of it. But what's been really cool is, like you said, we've had people, because we've built this into kind of our email system of being able to raise their hand. If you click on a link, it'll kind of tag them as interested in the film. If they click a different link, it's like, oh, I want to fund the movie. I want to help fund the distribution. So we know in our list of 7,000 or 8,000 people now, how many are interested in backing the project. Maybe not in those terms, but now that we have a Kickstarter that's out, we can then, and we will have by the time this email or this episode is released, we'll have told them, hey, a Kickstarter's coming. Get ready, get prepared, because we need your help sharing it. We need your help donating. We need a bunch of people to contribute on day one, because that helps the algorithm on Kickstarter kind of take it up a notch and put it in front of more people. That's free marketing. And so I'm really excited for how we've been systematically thinking about how do we build the audience? How do we give them the next thing, the next thing, the next thing? Because what we've touched on a number of times, I think, is, well, if you don't want to be a flash in the pan, you don't want to be 3 months out and have a big marketing push and then have that die out and then nothing until your movie comes out. So we're thinking about how do we build over the next 2 months so that we have this momentum going into opening weekend, rather than, oh shoot, everybody already saw this stuff and they're not going to see it again and now they're not going to show up.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And so I did one of those things, Darren, that you always joke about, where I say, yeah, just kind of end the sentence, which is fine, because your point was made, and so I don't need to re-emphasize that. Our guest that is on this episode, because of the nature of what we're doing with Kickstarter, I reached out to a friend, Kynan Griffin, who has essentially been what I think is this pioneer in independent film and Kickstarter, and that combination, and how to maximize those two um, avenues of raising funds and awareness. And so Kynan was kind enough to chat with us, and we're gonna chat with him now.
Hey, indie filmmakers and movie lovers. This show is sponsored by Purdy Distribution. Since 2011, they've been bringing incredible independent films to theaters, like Garrett Batty's The Saratov Approach, T.C. Christensen's Love Kennedy, and McLean Nelson's Once I Was a Beehive. They've worked with top-notch directors like Mitch Davis and Mark Goodman, specializing in family, faith-based, and funny films. This year alone, they've released hits with JK Studios like Go West and Villains Inc., and have even branched out internationally with films shot in South Africa and Japan. Purdy Distribution works closely with indie filmmakers, designing personalized distribution plans, whether it's a theatrical release or straight to streaming on platforms like Amazon, iTunes, Google, and more. If you have a PG or PG-13 film ready for the world, think about reaching out to Purdy Distribution. They're approachable and knowledgeable, ready to help you visualize your film's distribution. Even if your film isn't fully polished, they can offer valuable guidance. Plus, if you need that crucial distribution piece for investor packages, Purdy Distribution can provide a letter of intent to distribute, helping you secure funding without locking you into a contract. Mark your calendars for Purdy Distribution's upcoming releases: Tokyo Cowboy on August 30th, the digital release of Thabo and the Rhino Case on September 1st, Faith of Angels in theaters on September 12th, Villains Inc. on Amazon and iTunes on October 1st, and The Carpenter on November 1st. To stay updated on these releases and more, sign up for their newsletter at purdydistribution.com. That's P-U-R-D-I-E distribution.com. Now, back to the show.
Okay, hey, welcome, Kynan. Thank you very much for being here. It is a thrill to be able to have you on the podcast. This is Kynan Griffin, someone that I like to consider one of the pioneers of at least Kickstarter and doing independent films, and I've always admired everything he's done. If you go to his IMDb, there are, what is it? Is it 1,000 yet credits, Kynan?
1,000, yes, 1,000 credits. Now, we've probably made about 25 movies and a TV series. So, yeah, been busy.
Yeah, been very busy, and it's been very fun to watch you do these Kickstarters. So that is the topic of what we're covering this episode. Darren and I are getting ready to do a Kickstarter for Faith of Angels, one of our films that we're releasing in the next 4 or 5 months. And so I thought, well, hey, why don't we reach out to somebody who has done this, who has proven it, and could perhaps give us some great advice and good advice to the listeners on, does a Kickstarter, well, how do you maximize crowdfunding for independent film, either releasing or funding it. So, can you tell us, kind of real quick, just an overview of what kind of what your experience has been with raising funds through Kickstarter?
Kickstarter, we actually got started on it when Kickstarter kind of first opened. We had a film which we had just shot, and we were like, "Hey, what's this thing?" And so we just released a trailer on Kickstarter and said we were raising money to finish the film. And we kind of did an experiment where we're like, what if we don't market this at all? What if we just put it on there and see what Kickstarter can do? And we raised it a little bit. I think that movie got like $20,000 or something. And that proved to us that it was a viable outlet. And pretty much every movie we did after that, we've used Kickstarter as an additional marketplace. We haven't so much raised money for the films via Kickstarter. We've used it as a pre-sales venue, as a additional territory where we can sell directly to the public and build a fan base. Because what we found with Kickstarter is those people are your most diehard fans. Those people are the ones who are willing to put, their money where their fandom is, and so it's built a great community of people who've gone on to be involved in a lot of our films too. So it's that's primarily how we've used it as a monetizable community of fans.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, that's one of the things we've talked about a little bit on the previous episodes is the importance of building an audience. As an independent filmmaker, sometimes the biggest challenge is, oh, I want to make a movie, but I don't have distribution or I don't have an audience. And I think an active audience, or if you can prove that there are people that will support your movies, either in the theaters or via Kickstarter or streaming, um, that is certainly appealing to a distributor or to even circumvent a distributor and
Yeah,
release directly.
and I think it's getting more important. In the early days when we were making, we make a lot of fantasy and science fiction movies. Um, the international market, the international television market, was strong for those, and so that's primarily where were making them for. We'd make them, we'd sell them to foreign distributors, we'd get our money back right away. It was a pretty simple business model, but that's kind of all gone away now. Those foreign sales territories, like no one plays movies on TV anymore, hardly at all. And they haven't really developed kind of AVOD and other streaming systems of their own and all around the world. Like the US has a lot of outlets, but foreign, they've kind of like shut down almost entirely. So it's hard for independent films to make money in the same manner that they used to. And so I think places like Kickstarter are becoming more and more important, actually. On our we have a series called Mythica, which is 6 films now. And on that one, that was the first time we used Kickstarter before we had actually shot the film. So we used Kickstarter to raise money for that film and release it, just because the market's changed a lot since we released the first Mythica film. So it really is becoming an essential outlet to sell directly to your audience.
Kynan, can you give us an idea? Because you said you started kind of when Kickstarter started. That's like 10, 12 years ago, right? So how many people did you reach from that first Kickstarter, and what's kind of the trajectory been? Because I think a lot of people go, well, I can't raise $1 million, so I might as well not even try. But you said you raised 20 on your first one. What's kind of the trajectory been over, I don't know, 10 or 12 Kickstarters that you've run now?
Yeah, that first Kickstarter, like I said, we just put it up there and did not even put it on Facebook or anything. We're like, it's kind of a
Well,
secret. Put it
you guys
up
just
there.
flying under the radar. Yeah. Why
Yeah.
get it out there?
No, because we were even like the fear was like, are we even allowed to do this? Do distributors like we weren't sure how people would feel about it at all. And once we saw they were comfortable with it, then we kind of the next few we dived in. But those first few Kickstarters we did, we were getting like 20, 30.
And how many people did that like contributed to those Kickstarters?
Um, we're talking about hundreds of people, right? Not thousands, just like 300 or 400 or 500. Um, and I think we set kind of like a high watermark on those early ones with like 60,000 and $60,000. And we're like, yeah, but we kind of evolved our approach and strategies and kind of saw the potential of Kickstarter. And you can see it over the Mythica films. As I say, there's been 6 of them. And I think the first one got about $60,000. And by the time we did the 6th one, it was about 220,000. So you can see like a steady growth of hardcore fans. So it's about, I think those ones probably had about 1,500 or 1,600 fans. And, I think the average spend on Kickstarter is about $100. So if you're hitting about 80, 90, $100 per backer, that's kind of the potential of that fan base. So they are really, really hardcore. Like I said, they're wonderful fans, and they're the people which increasingly independent filmmakers need to be turning to because, like I say, that the marketplace is very weird right now.
Well, I think it's a testament to what you've done with those movies. You have built a fan base. Certainly, if Mythica 2 or 3 let the fans down, lesson learned. They're like, we're not part of that. But it's it's a complementary relationship, right? They support you, and you give them what they want, uh,
Yeah,
which has been
and
so fun to watch.
And I should also add that we are really, really bad at building an audience and kind of like we're so focused on like making movies that we're terrible at it. Like we are like the worst. And we have seen a couple people who we've worked with in the past who have really focused on building their audience and building email lists and completely networking and keeping in touch with their fans, and they're routinely doing 500,000, 600,000 on Kickstarter for their movies. So it's very possible to kind of fund your entire independent film that way if you focus on building that audience properly. As I say, we're terrible at it. We just make movies, and that's
Well,
it's
it's
kind of
it's
like a byproduct of actually just making lots of movies.
yeah. You mentioned, and this is so relatable, that sentiment of, are we allowed to do this? Is the distributor going to be disappointed that, hey, you've already sold, 1,000 units, and now I don't have an opportunity to sell more units? But that's not like that's what I feel right now. We're getting ready to launch a Kickstarter for Faith of Angels, and I don't want to dilute my offer to a distributor. Uh, that's not a
Uh,
concern.
Yeah, no, we've actually found the opposite. Like our distributors have used it as a marketing tool, like telling territories, like, "Hey, they made this much on Kickstarter. That proves that people really love it." And so it's quite the opposite. And also, I do believe it's a super effective marketing tool to just get the word out about your movie. So when you look at a Kickstarter campaign, when you look at the number of shares and the number of impressions and number of people who have seen that, particularly if you run some advertising on your Kickstarter, which we've done on some of our later Kickstarters, we've run Google ads and Facebook ads and all the rest, because you can track pretty effectively how much money those lead to. Um, you start seeing that your movie is now getting tens of thousands of impressions uh, everywhere. So even just your Kickstarter fans sharing it, if you have, say 1,500 people who back your project, you know that about 20,000 people have looked at it and been like, huh, that's interesting. And so it
Yeah.
gets the word out about the film uh, way better than any other platform that I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah, that that's encouraging because it's exactly kind of where we are. The movie's done. We're getting ready to release it, and in September, if people don't know about this movie, they will not be able to see it. Uh, and so I think the more we can tell them the early on, the better opportunity we'll have to recoup in the theaters. Kind of what can you tell me about the rewards? Are there rewards that you've seen that are more effective or low
Um,
price or high price? What insights do you have?
I think the more personal, the better. So, of course, the bulk of the rewards that people get are um, just buying physical product, actually, still, and people like physical product. The people on Kickstarter are people who still want you to send them a Blu-ray or a DVD. The more fun you can make that packaging, the more exclusive you can make it to Kickstarter. Um, on a little horror movie that we did with Rob York a couple years ago, um, he made like vintage VHS copies of it because it was kind of like an 80s throwback horror movie.
Was that the
And
Curse of Crom?
yeah, and
So fun.
that that was some fantastic packaging. Like it came in like an old battered plastic case, even like a video store. Um, so you know, I think giving them something which they can't get somewhere else. Of course, the bulk of your people are just going to take the digital download or the Blu-ray, but as many opportunities they can get to interact with. Uh, they really like the stars of the movies. So, signed posters, signed copies of the DVDs. Those things go well. Meetings, like we've given away Zoom meetings. We've given away like cameo style greetings from the actors. Um,
Mm,
just a sidebar to that. Uh, a Kickstarter can become very successful based on who's involved in the project. So if you have actors, directors, whoever with a large existing fan base already, um, get them to leverage that on behalf of your Kickstarter. An actor, for instance, uh, even if their fee to be in your movie is high, if they agree to support the Kickstarter and have a big fan base, they'll pay for themselves like right away.
yeah,
So I think, but they have to be willing participants. They have to be bought into the whole process. And you can figure out with them how to compensate them, um, how they can benefit themselves from leveraging their network as well. But on Mythicus 6, just the fact that Jake Stallone, who was one of the actors in the first 5 Mythica movies, he came on board as the director of the 6th one,
yeah,
and he's built a very active fan base himself. He's really nurtured that and helped that, and that helped tremendously with the Kickstarter. And a lot of the people who came on board were, came because they could get personalized rewards from Jake. So that's kind of something to really focus on. How can you give your fans something different than they can just get anywhere else?
that's good. Yeah, that's very insightful.
So, Kynan, you and Jason have been business partners for a long time. You've been independent filmmakers for a long time. I'd love if you could speak to some of maybe the ethos of your company, the way that you guys have approached the way that you do movies, because you guys aren't, it doesn't seem from the outside looking in that you're trying to become the next like Star Wars director producer. You're like, happy with what you're doing. you love this independent thing. Can you speak to that kind of ethos and your mindset around being an independent?
Yeah, I think we've always just focused on making the movies that we would have loved to watch. Maybe we're trapped in a permanent adolescence or something. It's probably a mental disorder, but we we make movies which we would have loved to watch as adolescent boys. And so, yeah, the focus has very much always been on, is this fun? Does this capture our imaginations? Is this something which we think other people like us would be excited to see? And so we've never really done, we don't write spec scripts really. We only create the things that we're going to make. And so, we get ideas which we get excited about. And I would also say that every project is kind of like an experiment. We treat every project as like, hey, let's see what happens if we do this. Nothing is that precious, I think, to us. We love it, we enjoy it, but it's not like something which is like, oh, I'm gonna see this one through to the end of my days. It's more like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And so you try things, and it's some things have turned out more successful than others, but I think we've learned something from every project, and every project is fun. And we used to go to Comic Cons and things like that, and it's always refreshing to actually go, meet the fan base and meet the people who like your movies, because that's why you make them. It's you love to meet the guy who says like, "Oh, this is my favorite movie," and you're like, "Really? That's your favorite?" But there's people who love projects for different reasons, and so that's always gratifying to see. And so, we just keep doing that because that's what we enjoy and what we know how to do.
Yeah. That brings up one other quick question then. I might move this earlier in the conversation, but like where is it most effective for you guys to run a Kickstarter? Early, like the first money in to even validate a project? Have you ever used it to validate the demand for a project? Or I know you've done some like just for post-production, so you've already made the movie, but now you're raising money for post. Like, do you have any recommendations, or what's your experience been about the different timing of where the Kickstarter goes in the fundraising process?
I think, as you say, we've mainly done it for kind of post production. And what's good about that is you already have like footage you can show people. It makes the marketing materials super easy. We've only done it once where we've done it before we shot the project, and that was on Mythica 6, the one we just most recently did. And that was an interesting process to kind of pre-create marketing materials, and also because it was like a follow-up to a series which had kind of concluded and was kind of relaunching in a different direction. There wasn't that much we wanted to give away about the story. And so it's this interesting juggling act of like how to get people excited about this without telling them too much. So I don't think it matters if you do it after you've shot the project or as you're planning the project. If you're doing it before you shoot the project, I would say get as many things in place as possible, especially personnel. So if you can get a key actor on board, if you know who your director is, get the key people in place already so that you can use them in the marketing of the Kickstarter. So you're not just saying, hey, we got this project that's going to be cool. As many specifics as possible, just because leveraging those people's networks is so important. Like, leverage your actors' networks, leverage your directors' networks. So yeah, and then you can also customize rewards based on those people, which is very key.
Kind of one question, and you've been generous with your time already, so I don't want to overstay. Uh, you're welcome. Uh, but one question, you raise 10,000 on Kickstarter. How much goes to Kickstarter? How much goes to rewards? Is there a simple math that you estimate what you
Yeah,
keep?
I think like I gotta remember. I think like 5% goes to Kickstarter and like 2 or 3% to your credit card processor. So you lose about 8% right off the bat in just fees. We also like to use BackerKit, which is a fulfillment. It helps you with fulfillment, but also helps with marketing post the Kickstarter and actually during the Kickstarter. Okay, I'm going to put a plug in here for BackerKit. BackerKit is an amazing service. Um, it also allows you to email all your previous Kickstarter fans, and once they've backed the project, they stop getting emails from you. So they have some cool tools in BackerKit, and they'll make your shipping easy. You can ship entirely through them, or you can just buy postage through them, and it will organize all your groups. And you can upsell your Kickstarter backers. So usually we find if we use BackerKit, we get enough post Kickstarter sales to cover our entire shipping costs. So
Oh, wow.
BackerKit basically becomes a free because you upsell. So like on Mythicus 6, for instance, I think we did like 215, say, on Kickstarter, and then on BackerKit we did another additional 18,000. In like, people know about BackerKit and they know like, oh, I can get more rewards down the line if I just. So I'll just back the Kickstarter. And BackerKit's actually launched like a competitor to Kickstarter for people who have already done a lot of Kickstarters. You can bypass Kickstarter and just use BackerKit entirely to do all your marketing. So
Go straight to your
Brandon,
backers.
yeah, so Brandon Sanderson, he did that massive Kickstarter, for instance. His
Yeah.
follow up to it was just on BackerKit because he has just marketing to those Kickstarter fans. So
Amazing.
it can be a good tool, but I would say, yeah, you lose 8% to credit card and Kickstarter, and I would count on at least another 10% in shipping.
Okay. Okay, that's helpful as we put this together and kind of estimate what our goals are. Low goal or high goal as far as what you'd recommend. I know you have to meet the goal in order to collect any of it.
Um, our experience has kind of been that uh, at first we'd set low goals and we'd be like, oh, we doubled our goal. But then once we started setting the goals high, it's almost like if you set the goal high, you'll get there. Um, if you're marketing properly and all the rest. So it's on Mythica 6, we set the goal at 200
Wow.
because we were like, hey, we can do that. We know we can do that. So
Yeah.
um, I don't know. Choose what you want to reach and go for it. It's
It's that easy. You make it sound so easy.
I it's 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 only easy if you have and it's not easy at all. It's a
Yeah.
whole like we like to run them for 30 days. There's no reason not to run 30 or 60 days. We run them for 30 days because it's so much work every day that we're just like, this is a huge distraction in our lives, and basically you have to set aside that month for it's just a mental distraction, even if you're not working on it all day long. So
Right. Right.
yeah, it's there's definitely, you don't want to fatigue your audience, you don't want to fatigue yourself by just constantly blasting people for 2 months of back my Kickstarter. Though it's been proven that there's no reason not to do 60 days. You're going to get just a little bit more money. So,
Yeah. Okay. This has been super helpful and super insightful and a little bit intimidating, but but I'm encouraged. I think we're going to move forward with our Kickstarter so we can get this movie out in front of as many people as want to back it.
yeah, get those actors on board. Get them on board to push it and push it.
That's smart.
And,
That's
and
smart.
leverage their networks.
Kynan,
Awesome.
where can our listeners find out about what else you're working on, or what do you want to plug?
We have a website, arrowstormentertainment.com, or you can find us on social media. You can look up the Mythica movies on social media or Arrowstorm Entertainment. We're over there, and like I say, we're very bad at social media and communicating and all the rest. But Kickstarter is something which we use as a way to stay in touch with our people.
Very
Awesome.
cool.
Thanks so much, Kynan. It's good to chat with you today.
Yeah,
awesome. Thanks a lot, guys, and good luck.
Okay, be well. Wow. That was cool.
Yeah, I mean, you got 10 or 12 years of experience on Kickstarter compressed into a 30-minute conversation. That's pretty valuable. Really, I wanted to do it just so that you felt better about the Kickstarter that we're launching. Like, as this episode comes out, I think it'll be out a day already. So yeah, it's a lot of work ahead, but I'm really excited because this is the embodiment of truly independent. We're going to the audience. We're saying, we're doing this with you. Here's the goal. Help us if you're interested. It's so exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, Kynan and Jason have built their business on Kickstarter, like with that initial campaign, and then just built their audience. And now he says, yeah, for Mythica 6, you got 200,000 via Kickstarter, plus another, what do you say, another 20%, another 18,000 on Backer Kit. What great tools to do that independently.
Yeah, I mean, they've done over $1 million in raises from their many different projects. I think there's 18 projects they've done over that time period. And, you know, like, we talk a lot about audience on this show, and like, they're explicitly saying, we don't have an email list, we're not good at social media, we don't talk to people very often. they're raising the money and making movies, and they're just doing it. And they're in the industry. They've been doing this full time for as long as I've been in the industry here in Utah. I've looked to them as a massive success story because they just get to do it full time. That's what we all want. But again, we answered in a previous episode, like, how big of an audience do you need? It's like, well, what's the outcome? And you reverse engineer from there. If they can get 1,500 people to give them $150 every couple of years, that's a big enough audience to go and make their movies. And that's what they need, and that's what they optimized for. And here they are. They're still doing it. Like, it's awesome.
They continue to serve that audience. That's that's key. It's kind of this, it's both this give and take. We'll pay for what we want, and you'll provide what we pay for.
Yeah, and I mean, look at the number of at-bats they've had in the last decade or two. Like, they've made a lot of movies.
Yeah.
And so I really am impressed by that, just because they've figured out how they're going to do it, and they've done it. And that says a lot about who they are and the way they approach their work. And I know there's too many filmmakers out there that are all about the I can't because, and this limiting mindset of, well, I can't because I don't have the money, or I can't because I don't have a producer, or I can't because I don't know how to get an actor attached. And then it's 10 years later and they still haven't made their movie. I was one of those for 9 years, actually 12 years. Tried to make a movie for 12 years, never did it, because I had that limiting mindset around, well, I don't have the resources. Until finally I was like, you know what? I want to make a movie. I want to be a producer, so I'm going to figure out how to do it. Yeah. And so I just love that that's been their approach for so long, to say, we're just going to do it. We don't care if we have permission. We don't care if the industry likes it or not. We're going to go straight to the fans, and we're going to make what they want and what we want. And they've done it.
So Darren, we are launching a Kickstarter, or if you're listening to this, we've launched a Kickstarter for Faith of Angels to take it to theaters across the country. The campaign is simple, that you donate, you get rewards, And as a part of that reward, you get to voice, share your zip code and voice where you would like the movie played. And then at $2,000 to an area, we can essentially book the movie in that area. It's simple, and I've made it complicated with that explanation. Uh, but the point is that the Kickstarter is active. Please go to it, share it, and participate so that we can reach the goal of taking this movie to theaters across the country.
Yeah,
This movie being
100%.
Faith of Angels.
Yeah, and if you're not in a position to donate or to contribute or back the Kickstarter, a share online goes a long way, because every one of us has 100 or 500 or 1,000 people that we're connected with online, and a nice hearty check this out goes a long way in getting the kind of awareness and the visibility for this project that we need. So please share it as well, whether or not you can help back the project.
That's true. That's very good. Very good point. Should we look at questions that we've received? We did have somebody submit, which is great. And this is from an old friend, Anthony Durbridge, who was, when I lived in Burbank, he was a great friend and fellow filmmaker. And we've lost contact, but this podcast has caught his attention. So he reached out.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, this is great. And he sent 15 questions. So
Oh boy.
we will now have a question for every episode from here on out. Don't worry, we're not going to get into all 15 here. But he asked, how do you determine the best markets for an indie film release? And I think that's certainly fitting to what we talked about with the Kickstarter. With Kynan and Jason at Aerostorm, they have built. They love this fantasy genre, and so they find markets and areas to release their films in there. To people who respond to that genre. What do you think, Darren? How do we determine the best markets for an indie film release?
Yeah, there's a principle I try my hardest to live by every day, which is the easiest path to success is to put what you do exceptionally well adjacent to the people who already overvalue what you do. I'm going to say that one more time because there's a lot of words. So put what you do exceptionally well adjacent to the people who already overvalue what you do. What does that look like in film and releasing a movie? Well, let's take Faith of Angels as the perfect example. We're starting the movie, we're starting the release in Utah, or the Utah DMA, which we talked about with Susan. And so that's an audience of people who overvalue true stories about people in Utah that have a faith-based element. So we're hitting our market really hard. We're not going to foreign sales first because they don't know who we are. Our actors aren't big enough overseas to be able to have the kind of draw or the kind of pull or the kind of value. I hate that concept of actors don't have value, but the people outside of our country don't necessarily overvalue what we do, but Utah does. And so strategically, we're going to them first because they're going to show up in droves. We already know that. We can already look at the counts of people who have, submitted their names and want it at their theater and want to donate and want to be a part of the film. And it's really concentrated in Utah, Idaho, the Utah DMA. So we start there, and then we use that to prove the market. And then the market responds by letting us expand and go wider. And so whether it's a film, whether it's your business, whether it's your script, the secret, I think, is to try and put what you do exceptionally well in front of the people who already value it, who overvalue what you do. So don't take a horror movie to a faith-based filmmaker and vice versa. Align with the people who already see the value and are ready and hungry for it. And that is how I try to approach everything I do, whether in film or business, because it just is a secret or a principle that's worked time and time again.
That's really cool, Darren, and good for indie film releasing and good for business in general. Great input. Another question that came in is that, well, he says, have you considered an online release shortly after the theatrical run? And we can talk about windows and things like that. And that's a question we get because we build an audience, we build this marketing wave, this tidal wave of awareness, and to put it in theaters. And then is there an opportunity immediately thereafter to capitalize on that and put it in streaming so that you're not having to recreate that momentum. And it's certainly a mindset. I think that there is evidence through, especially through the pandemic and post-pandemic, when studios in Hollywood tried day and date releases, and that seemed like it didn't go well, where it deflated your theatrical release, and audiences tended to not respond as they might have had the film only been exclusive to theaters. There's also a sensitivity toward theater owners to say, we want you to push this film and market this film. Oh, and by the way, it's coming out immediately on the heels of this release. So again, the theater owners are saying, well, why are we pushing the audience and awareness for this movie that people are going to purchase somewhere else, not at our theaters? So I personally believe that there's enough evidence and enough support to say, look, the theaters get the first shot, and that is our focus. And after that release, we'll position the film for streaming and post theatrical markets. But I don't want to blur the lines between those two.
Yeah. The data also shows that it's not smart to eat into your theatrical release, especially as an independent filmmaker. So there's two sites I would point people to that I love reading. So one is stephenfollows.com, STEPHEN follows.com. The other one is Entertainment Strategy Guy, which is entertainment.substack.com. And both of them have reported extensively on this. They've gone in, they've run the numbers, they look at the data. They're both extremely data-driven people, and they report on film. And the data across the board, whether you're a studio or an indie, is like, don't eat your own tail when it comes to your theatrical release. It's always better to have a full theatrical run and then then do your window for streaming or whatever the next window is, because you want to really, like, that's what movies are. Let me get on my soapbox for 30 seconds here. Movies are going to a theater, big screen, dark room, amazing sound, in a group of people, with a group of people who also are into it. And so you get this shared experience that can never be replicated. Even if you go see the movie a second time, it's a different audience. And so it won't be the same experience. That's what movies are. So I love that you can watch movies on your phone, on the subway, across the world, because the internet. But that's not a movie to me. That's content, or that's just like filling a void of time that I need to have, like, between A and B. That's not a movie. That's not the movie experience. So us as filmmakers, at least me as a producer, I want to make movies, not for phones, not for iPads, not for home. Like, it's great. And I love that people can watch movies at home, but I want my movies in theaters. That's what I'm making. That's the product that I'm making as a producer, is an experience in a theater. So why would I cut into that by saying day and date, or 15 days out, we're going to release it on streaming? No, I want everybody possible to go see it. And if you limit the opportunity for people to go see it to just a theater, guess what? They're going to go to the theater and see it. So off my soapbox, that's my rant for the day.
I'm very passionate about it, Darren. I wish I could just get you fired up a little. No, I agree, and it's great. And it'd be like as if, maybe this isn't the best analogy, but if I'm a chef and a restaurant owner, I'm less likely to create a meal for you that you can just take to your picnic. Like, I want you to come in and experience the meal. If you need a to-go box afterwards, great. I'll provide that. But come in and experience the meal where it was intended to be experienced.
Come to my restaurant rather than the frozen food aisle at Smith's.
Sure. There's a good market for that. Anyway, well, good. Well, what an episode. Thank you. And fun to hear from Anthony Durbridge on those. Thanks for your questions. We'll continue to answer some of those. If you have questions, submit them. Go to 3coinpro.com/podcast and fill out the form. We would love to find out what you want to know.
Yeah, and the Kickstarter is live, so go to the link in description, or the link in the comments, or the
Yeah, wherever you're
show
listening.
notes. Or the link in the show notes, and that is where you can go and you can contribute and you can tell people about it. We're going to run this for like 30 days. So it's live as of yesterday. Please go help out and help us get this film into theaters.
Okay, thanks very much. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thank you for listening to this episode of Truly Independent. To join us on the journey of new episodes and screenings and ask us questions about today's episode, head over to 3coinpro.com/podcast and put in your name and an email address. If you're a fan of the show, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast app and be sure to episode with a friend. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Our intro and outro music is Election Time by Kynan Griffin.